Well, what I have told people in the past is when in the Army, I learned to take care of soldiers, whether that be their pay or their benefits or things like that. And I have transferred that concept now to my clients.
Yes.
It may seem different, but taking care of clients is my ultimate goal. And I find that the most rewarding part of what I do now.
Servant leadership.
Exactly.
I love it, man.
Positively West Virginia is presented by Interaction Media and sponsored by Huntington Bank, Highmark West Virginia, Freedom Key of Morgantown, and Storymaker. With help from our sponsors, we are able to share the positive business stories of West Virginians, including the one featured in today's episode.
Well, folks, we're visiting today with Brian McCommon. He is a realtor with Mountain Ridge Realty, and he also serves as the president of the Morgantown Board of Realtors. Brian, thanks for being in the studio with us today. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to learning about your business and your service as the president of the Morgantown Board of Realtors. Maybe we get a little real estate conversation as well.
Yeah, happy to talk about it.
Brian, tell us what you do.
Well, I'm a realtor, as you said, which we are actually independent contractors, but it's actually fairly simple in that I represent buyers and sellers, primarily in residential real estate. I started over in Jackson County, which is a pretty rural county, but it's really nice to come to a market like this now in north central West Virginia, not just Morgantown, but anywhere north central.
Yes.
And having originally come from a large city, I kind of really appreciate this market now. It's sort of a hybrid between rural Jackson County and the metropolitan Washington, D.C. area where I'm from.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian, you mentioned you're from D.C. You also, I want to mention this, you're a sergeant first class in the Army National Guard. Thank you, first of all, for your service. We appreciate that.
Thank you. I
for
appreciate
sure.
that.
How did you get into the military? What kind of brought you in that direction, first of all?
Well, I was 23 years old back then, and I'll be honest, I went into the military at first for the employment, for the benefits, for the salary and so forth.
Sure.
It took me a few years, but eventually, as I matured, I came to see a bigger picture than myself. It was more than just me. And I was, back in those days, I was at Fort Myer, which is outside of D.C., and I was part of a lot of funerals at Arlington National Cemetery.
Oh, wow.
And when I would see those families, I started realizing what this was all about.
Serious.
And I found a cause bigger than me. And since then, it's evolved. Now, I take care of soldiers. I lead soldiers. And so that's sort of my calling now is leading them.
Yeah. Again, thank you for your service, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Well, what in the world got you into the real estate business?
Well, several years ago, I thought I was about to retire from the military, and I was trying to figure out some way to segue into something else. And I just wasn't sure at first, but I'd had a couple of friends who were realtors, and they strongly encouraged me to pursue it.
Yeah.
It turned out I did not retire from the military when I thought I was going to, so I'm still in. And so it's a gradual progression like this as I approach retirement, and hopefully the real estate business is growing at the same time.
Yeah. Okay. So how long have you been in the real estate world then?
I think it's been about 7 years now.
7 years. Okay.
Well, almost 8 years maybe.
That's very cool. So for folks that don't know, you mentioned, you are an independent contractor.
Correct. Yes.
You are self-employed. All right.
Pretty
You're
much,
an entrepreneur.
Yes.
You have an infrastructure around you with Mountain Ridge Realty, and that is a new company, kind of relatively new here in Morgantown.
About
area.
a year and a half.
About a year and a half. Stephanie Lemley's the broker.
That
Give
is
her
correct,
a shout
yes.
out. What does that look like? You have to go out and get your own listings. Do you have people calling you? How does the whole thing work as a realtor?
Well, a lot of it has to do with networking. So those who have been in the market for a long time, or maybe if you grew up here, you're a native, you've got a lot of built-in networking. If you went to school here, if you've worked other jobs here. I, on the other hand, am new to this market. I've only lived here about 4 years. So it's taken me a little more time to develop that networking.
Yeah, sure.
But there are all other kinds of marketing techniques, whether it be social media or, some realtors actually buy leads from companies and that type of thing. But it's a package deal between marketing and grassroots type of networking.
It's a hustle. You have to get out there and get yourself known.
It is definitely a hustle.
You have to have great relationships. You have to do good work, and then you'll get referrals, right?
Exactly.
So
if you take care of your clients, then they're going to refer you to their friends and family.
Yeah, that's pretty simple, but it's very hard too. On
Yeah.
the same hand, right?
It's got to be about the clients and not about yourself. Yeah.
All right, well, that's good. Well, with regard to what your specialty is, do you have like a niche, like certain neighborhoods, or talk a little bit about that? What are you known for?
Not necessarily. I'll represent anybody in north central West Virginia, Morgantown down to Clarksburg, Bridgeport, or I even occasionally go a little beyond that.
Yeah.
I think I've had deals in every county around here so far, 5 or 6 counties in north central West Virginia. But
Awesome.
Buyers or sellers, I'm happy to work with anybody.
Yeah, that's great.
When I started, I thought, working with sellers would be great because I thought it'd be less work. That was purely selfish. But when I started working with buyers, and especially first-time buyers, it became more rewarding because I was truly helping people who didn't know how to go about this.
Maybe even talking them out of buying a particular property.
I have done that. Yes.
I guarantee it, because
Yes.
that's a smart thing to do, right? You don't you want somebody's first home especially to be a blessing, not a curse.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
That's good. That's good. Well, all right. So let's talk about your 30-second pitch. When you meet somebody for the first time, what do you tell them?
Well, what I have told people in the past is when in the Army, I learned to take care of soldiers, whether that be their pay or their benefits or things like that. And I have transferred that concept now to my clients.
Yes.
It may seem different, but taking care of clients is my ultimate goal. And I find that the most rewarding part of what I do now.
Servant leadership.
Exactly.
I love it, man. That's great, Brian. Thank you for sharing that. All right. So I want to shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about the Morgantown area, or say north central West Virginia real estate market. We've been hearing lots of things in the last year and a half about interest rates, supply, demand, all those types of things. Now you're leading the Morgantown Board of Realtors as the president, and that's got to be a pretty cool thing. I see your column in the Sunday Dominion Post. I actually have a copy of it right here. So
fantastic.
Folks, every Sunday you can read about Brian's words and his thoughts as a thought leader in the real estate market. Tell us a little bit about what's going on here. What's your perspective on the real estate market in North Central?
Well, first about the board itself.
Yeah.
What's so special about that is realtors are all in competition with each other. We're all trying to gain the same clients. However, within the board, we come together. We work together there. We work on charitable campaigns. We host events, fundraisers, things like that. So it's really neat how we can be competitors at one moment, and then we're collaborating with each other
I love that.
at another.
Some great people also.
Absolutely, yes. But to answer your question a little bit better, let me give you my 4-year perspective here. I came here to work in real estate, and boom, COVID hit.
Yeah.
And that was devastating to the market for a while. Yeah. And then with the supply chain issues that came up after that, like lumber in particular, that was hurting new construction. So I came at a terrible time.
Timing's everything, isn't it?
It was, yeah. Interest rates kept going down and down and down. So it became great for buyers. It became very profitable for sellers. But so many sellers then were afraid to become buyers. So you see the dilemma we got into.
Oh, yeah, it was
and
crazy.
So therefore, and it's still the case today, we have an inventory problem now. We still don't have enough people selling. So it's been a bizarre market. Interest rates started going up a lot last year, probably peaked around October or November. It was near 8%, which scared a lot of buyers off. Now it's dropped again, under 7, like 6.5 to 7%. So we're seeing a little more activity again, but we still don't have the inventory we truly need. It's still not a normal market.
Is there a particular price point that's hot right now, or is it across the board, everything?
It's mostly across the board. So I can't give you the best answer on that.
As we're recording this at the beginning part of March 2024, as we go into the spring, real estate market, when everything kind of typically heats up, so to speak. Do you anticipate anything out of the ordinary? Is going to be
the traditional cycle is in the spring. We see a lot more listings.
Sure.
Obviously, families with school-aged children don't want to move till the summer. That's one reason.
Right, yeah.
People don't want to move in bad wintry weather unless they absolutely have to.
Right.
So that's another reason. So we hope we'll have that surge this spring and summer, and with a little bit better interest rates, that may happen again.
Yeah.
The prediction from Washington is interest rates will continue to drop a little bit, but none of us know for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian, thank you so much. This has been a great interview so far. We're going to take a quick break to mention our sponsors for the Positively West Virginia podcast. We'll be right back.
It started with a road trip. Huntington bankers through big cities and small towns, where we met Jane and Dontel and their calendar. Every day predicting the money coming in and the money going out, which gave us an idea. What if we could set up a digital cash flow calendar for their business? So we built it for them. Why? Because we're for people. Huntington, welcome.
Your prescriptions are designed to keep you healthy, active, full of life. At Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield, we're making vital medicine more affordable. Because when your prescriptions don't cost an arm and a leg, you can use those limbs for something more meaningful. Because life. Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield, West Virginia.
And we're back. We're visiting today with Brian McCommon. He's a realtor with Mountain Ridge Realty and also the president currently of the Morgantown Board of Realtors. Brian, so you mentioned the real estate market, some of the things that are happening. What would you say is the thing you're most excited about in the real estate business right now?
It's truly capitalistic. You make what you earn. There's no entitlement there or anything like that. So you got to go out and hustle. And when I say hustle, that means, I'm taking care of my clients. And if I do that, the business will come.
Does that mean you get a call, on Friday at 8:00 p.m. and somebody says, "Hey, I just saw this listing. Can we go see it tomorrow morning?" And you're like, "Oh, dadgummit."
Usually that's the case. I mean, sometimes you are a little limited. You can only do so much at once.
Right.
But for the most part, yes.
You got to be
stop
responsive.
what you're doing and you got to be responsive to them.
That's your lifeblood, right?
It sure is.
Answering those calls. How do you get most of your business now? You talked about maybe some social media. You talked about referrals. You talked about buying leads, or what some people do that. How do you get most of your business these days?
In my case, it's mostly been either referrals or direct connections in my networking in the military. Being in the West Virginia Army National Guard, I know service members around the state.
Yeah.
And so that's been a big chunk of it for me.
That's really
both when
cool.
I started in Jackson County and here in North Central West Virginia now.
Yeah. Okay. You were in Ravenswood, in Jackson County?
I lived in Ravenswood. I was very involved in the community there on boards and so forth. And
that's wonderful.
So when I was there, I actually represented clients in Parkersburg as well. That was a little bit bigger market than Jackson County. Yep. But I covered that in the entire area.
And so, you kind of gave us an indication of the geographic area. North Central West Virginia is your primary market.
It is, yeah.
That's great. I got to ask you this, because when I think about, I love watching like real estate shows on, I don't watch a lot of TV, but when I do, it's on, these fixer-upper type shows or, people doing flips and whatnot. And my wife and I are a little bit into the real estate business. What's the craziest listing you've ever had? If you had like one of those ones,
goodness.
You got to talk about this.
Well, when I was getting started about 7-8 years ago now, I was brand new. I was also in a rural market, so I wanted to find some way to start learning and to get some traction. Yeah. So I don't know how I first made the contact, but I somehow got in contact with some banks.
Yeah.
And started representing foreclosures. Now, sometimes foreclosures are great.
Yeah.
But there are some that are horrible. But that was okay because I was learning. So I took like dilapidated foreclosures as listings. And one time, again, I was living in Ravenswood.
Yeah.
And I won't say the name of the bank, but a major bank in North Carolina contacted me about a property in Putnam County in Buffalo. It was almost an hour away.
Yeah.
So I went down there. It was hard to find, but I found the property. It's still kind of rural. Drove across these train tracks. As soon as I got tracks, then I turned right and had to drive along the tracks until I found this old run-down home. Well, as I pulled up, I noticed somebody was coming on a side-by-side. It's coming my way. So I realized, I allowed the person to come up. And I immediately, I hope I don't offend anybody by what I'm getting into now, but I immediately noticed he was carrying. And he was hostile. And long story short, he kept threatening to shoot people who come on his property. And what I didn't realize is I had crossed his property to get to this one. Well, it turned out he was the person who had been foreclosed upon, but happened to own the adjacent property as well. So he was trying to intimidate any realtor, any buyer, anybody who would go look at that property, which was sort of landlocked. And he was trying to hold the bank hostage and bring that price down until he could afford it.
Wow, that's a unique strategy.
And he was a blowhard. I knew he wasn't really going to shoot me, but I had to be cautious just in case.
Oh my goodness!
So that would be my most interesting one.
That's great. We talk about like a rundown property. What's like for people out there that are maybe listening to this and be thinking like, I'm thinking about putting my house up for sale. What are some quick tips that you could give for people before they put their property on the market? How could you increase the value?
Well, one thing some people will do is have like a pre-listing inspection where we have a home inspector give you tips, give you ideas on what a buyer might request to have repaired after it goes under contract. Yeah. If you can get those things accomplished before listing, it will save a lot of stress and a lot of headache and a lot of time while it's under contract.
What would those be like? If you have maybe a crack in a sidewalk or the railing is falling off the front steps, those kinds of things?
Yeah, those kinds of things.
Cosmetic or
maybe there's
structural?
Indications of moisture in the crawl space or basement, which could lead to mold, and that would be a health concern.
Yeah, of course.
When using those government-backed loans like VA, FHA, USDA, which you just mentioned, like a handrail problem or cracked paint when it might have been lead paint in the past, those will be showstoppers. But if you take care of that before you even list, the transaction is going to go much more smoothly. And then when it's time to list and we're getting ready to take pictures or shoot video, whatever it may be, really decluttering your home. And something else I'll mention too is depersonalizing your home. For example, there was nothing bad in this one case, but I was showing a home back in Ravenswood one time, taking this lady through the house, and she froze on the steps looking at the pictures on the wall. And she said, and I'll use a fake name, but she'll say, "Was this Mrs. So-and-so's house?" That was her kindergarten teacher. And she saw the pictures. In this case, it was fine. Wow. But sometimes you may not want to know, or the buyers or potential buyers to know whose home it is, especially in a small town.
It's kind of funny, that you mentioned that because, like I said, I'm kind of a real estate junkie, so I'm looking at properties all the time, and I'll see somebody's picture on the wall, and I'll try to zoom it in and see if I know who it is. But there are some really cool technologies out there today. Like I have a particular app on my phone where I can get an address, and I know who the property owner is these days.
Well, true.
Pretty easy to do that.
That is true,
But it is a good point. I often thought, wouldn't it be cool if you could figure out a way to have like digital picture frames in your home that you're listing and like load pictures of the people that are coming to see it so they see their own pictures on the wall. Now that would be $1 million idea, Brian. Go on now.
If I could add something else too, just for security reasons, because you never know. Yeah. I mean, yes, the realtor will try to keep an eye on their clients, but you just never know who potential buyers might be. So don't leave your keys hanging on hooks. Don't leave your prescription medications out. Yeah. Don't leave jewelry out. Anything like that, especially if it's an open house, because the realtor can't watch everyone. So
Are open houses still effective?
Maybe not as much as they once were, but we're still hosting them. And, in some cases, they work. It's hit or miss, but they do work.
Yeah, that's really cool. So I want to talk a little bit about leadership. You are a leader in the Army National Guard, a Sergeant First Class. Again, thank you for your military service. What do you think, Brian, is one of the most important attributes in business leaders today? What do you think?
I would equate business leadership a lot with military leadership. Getting to know your people, showing them you care, taking care of them as best you can. I don't want to be a boss who gives orders and my people only do what they absolutely have to. Yeah. I want to inspire them so they will go above and beyond. Well, one, it's the right thing to do, but then two, give them some ownership, empower them so they will want to do more.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Just in the last couple of years, we've heard this notion of quiet quitting, only doing the minimum amount of work so you don't get fired, I guess is the kind of concept. And I think that's I think an offshoot of poor leadership.
Yeah.
When people are just like they don't feel empowered, they don't feel
Right, yeah.
purpose, connection
Mhm.
to their job and their
Uh-huh.
work.
Can I mention something else?
Yes, please.
Because I heard
Yep.
you. I don't remember who you were interviewing now, but I saw one of your previous podcasts, and you mentioned Simon Sinek.
Yes. Yep.
Well, I won't get into the whole book, but just the title of one of his books is Leaders Eat Last.
Absolutely.
That's a military concept. And I'm not saying every military unit does it or all military leaders are good. There's good and bad, but that concept is what we're talking about. You take care of your people, you get them fed first, and then you eat.
Yeah.
And if you master that concept, you're going to get the most out of your people.
Yeah.
You're going to,
Yep.
I mean, there may be an occasional exception, but
Powerful.
for the most part, I feel like that's a much better way to lead than more of the dictatorial type of concept.
Absolutely. I appreciate your thoughts on that as well. We're visiting folks today with Brian McCommon. He is a realtor with Mountain Ridge Realty and currently serving as the president of the Morgantown Board of Realtors. We're going to take a quick break to mention our sponsors for Positively West Virginia. We'll be right back.
It's in the precision, the attention to detail, and the confidence that create a timeless look. Like Diamond Cuts Barbershop, Freedom Kia of Morgantown is not only committed to timeless design, but also fair pricing, excellent sales, and service with no hidden fees. You'll love the all-new 2024 Kia Sportage LX all-wheel drive leasing for just $265 per month, wherever it is you're going. Arrive with confidence and arrive in style. Visit Freedom Kia today, right off exit 153 on I-79 in Morgantown.
My name's Caitlin Furby. I'm an interior designer with Remarkable Interiors. Our time is very limited. We're trying to do everything we can possible to keep our clients' projects moving and rolling. So StoryMaker has been really great for us for putting out how to explain our company. I can sit and agonize about a post. And is this right? Does this sound good? When I use StoryMaker, it sounds so beautiful and it was so easy and it saves me a lot of time to do the things that I'm really good at.
Folks, we're back. We're visiting today with Brian McCommon. He is a realtor with Mountain Ridge Realty. They're based out of Morgantown and serving North Central West Virginia. Brian is also the president currently of the Morgantown Board of Realtors. Brian, is somebody who is from Washington, D.C., lived in Ravenswood, Jackson County, moved to Morgantown. What would you say is the like a piece of advice you would give somebody thinking about starting a business? Maybe it's a real estate business or some other type of business here in West Virginia. What kind of advice would you give them?
Wow, that's a good question. I can't talk about this in depth, but a couple of years ago, I was in the West Virginia Association of Realtors Leadership Academy, and someone we had come in to speak to us was the Secretary of State, Mac Warner.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And we learned, it was an eye-opener for me, at how much easier he's made it for business leaders to start their businesses.
Yes.
I think he calls it the one-stop shop or something of that
it's
nature.
WV Business Link. Yep.
Exactly,
Yep.
yeah. Apparently, in years past, it was such a tedious process. You're trying to focus on your craft and get your business launched, but you're going through so many issues with the government, and they've really made that easier. So, going to the Secretary of State's website is a huge benefit to business owners.
Yeah, absolutely. And Business Link, we've had some of the folks on. We've had Mac Warner on our show before too. Yeah, and in different episodes, just talking about business and startups. But yeah, I think that's really great. When I think about what you're trying to do here in Morgantown, Brian, with your service as the president of the Board of Realtors, what's the vision for that board? What's the vision for real estate here long-term here in Morgantown? What do you think?
With regard to the board, first of all, I'm only the president for 1 year.
1 year,
I'll be on the board one more year beyond that, but only president for 1 year.
That's cool.
A couple of my goals this year are to communicate to the public more of what we do. First of all, what we do as a board, and that's surprisingly a lot of charitable work, and people don't always realize that. So I'm trying to communicate that better through the newspaper columns and through social media.
That's great.
It's also a great tool, like I said, for the realtors to collaborate and to work to work together.
Yeah. What kind of nonprofit service do you guys do? Is it like certain projects?
We will do fundraisers. Actually, something we've started recently is we're picking a charity each month right now. And it might be something very simple. Like this month, it was for St. Ursula's. And we were just collecting diapers and wipes and other things that they said that they need. Yeah. We will do fundraisers a couple of times a year for certain events. Around the holiday times, we join up with the United Way and Christian Help to deliver the food and clothing items at Christmas time.
That's great. Yeah, you guys always have a good holiday party too.
Yes, we do.
I've been to a couple of those.
Actually, that's not entirely true because I came here in 2020.
Yeah.
And due to COVID and then the uncertainty of whether whether or not restrictions were going to be lifted, we didn't have one of those until this past year. It's my first time in 4 years.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
It's finally,
but we finally have it back.
Finally got back. That's great. That's wonderful.
But even there, we were collecting toys for the Christmas toy drive. So, we really do have a calling for those charitable causes.
I think that's really cool, and it's a way to have that connection, like you said, the sense of community. Because you're out there, like you said, competing a lot. But inside that board, you're able to have this sense of collaboration. I love that word that you use.
We do. And then when we're actually in a transaction, which can sometimes be adversarial, but if it's an agent on the other side that you actually know, it'll be easier to resolve and easier to talk to each other. Sure. It won't be quite as tense.
Yeah, because you may have rubbed shoulders, putting meal packages together, right?
Exactly.
And serving humanity here in North Central West Virginia. Well, I think that's really cool. I like the fact that you've got this leadership mindset from the military that you're bringing into your business. And I think that's really a neat thing. What do you think in terms of your today, 2024, March 2024, what's the biggest challenge you're facing in business right now?
Within the real estate business, it's still the market right now. Yeah. The market has not been normal for 4 years. Yeah. It's either been really restrictive due to government restrictions due to COVID, or it's been the supply chain, or then became inventory problems. Interest rates have been up and down a little bit, but again, it's still not a normal market. Hopefully we're getting there now. It's still to be determined. Yeah. But that's been my biggest challenge.
It's normalizing. How's that?
Slowly. Slowly it is.
Yeah, kind of getting back to
a lot of us had a slow year in 2023. I'm not saying every realtor did, but quite a few of us had a slower year in 23 than we did in 22. Yeah. And that had a lot to do with interest rates.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you kind of shedding some light on that because it is complex. I mean, it's simple. You got interest rates, you got inventory, you've got demand, but it's nuanced too, right? There's
a lot going on. Yeah,
a lot going on for that. So, Brian, as we've covered a lot in this interview. We've everything from your military service, your service on the board of realtors, your background. Is there anything else you think that our listeners should know about your personal story, or your work with Mountain Ridge Realty or the Morgantown Board of Realtors?
Well, in my bigger picture, I'll point out that I do have a voiceover business as well. It's very small time at this point.
It's like a side hustle?
It's a side hustle that I'm hoping will start growing over the next few years.
Very cool.
As I get closer to retirement from the military. So, I record a little bit of commercials here and there, like, some radio or more on social media. But I also, this isn't exactly, I'm sorry, I just went blank for a second. I don't know if you can edit that part out or not.
That's okay.
What was I trying to say? It's not exactly voiceover, but I do. I'm a contributor to WMOV Radio back in Jackson County. So I do a 2-minute segment every week. It reaches about 4 or 5 counties in the Mid Ohio Valley.
That's really cool.
So that's one thing.
Still your connection over there too.
It is. Yes.
People get to hear your voice.
And another thing is, I'm a former professional trombonist. So I still work a little bit, not much. Yeah. It's not my livelihood now, but there's a symphony orchestra here. It's kind of a startup called the Black Diamond Philharmonic. I've performed with them.
Very cool.
I performed with a big band jazz group in Parkersburg called the Smoot House Band. And I also get to perform with a military band too, the 249th Army Band. That's one of a few things I do in the Guard. Yeah,
that's really cool. I love it, man. That's awesome. I'm a fellow musician myself. Former drummer. I don't really play anymore, but I played the drums for a long time. So that's really cool. Well, Frank, as we close out our time here, I said Frank, and I don't know why I said that. Brian, as we close out our time here, how can our listeners learn more about you, maybe even get in touch with you?
Mm-hmm.
What's the best way to do
Well, I probably the best. Well, there are two good ways to follow me right now. One is social media. I have a business page on Facebook, Instagram. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, which is more professional networking. But for the rest of this year, I have a column in the Sunday Dominion Post. So that appears each Sunday, 52 weeks that I'm writing those columns.
Yep.
I enjoy writing. I admit I'm a little concerned about 52 weeks of content. I'm good right now. Several months from now, I got to work on that content.
It's a commitment, right? Yeah.
But more and more people are getting to know me, even though I'm newer in this community. But I'm very grateful to the Dominion Post for that.
Yeah, that's great. And we'll make sure we have links to all that stuff on our show notes as well as social media.
If I could say though, that column though is not about me. It's not about person. I'm not promoting myself there. That's my role as president of the Morgantown Board.
It's really the way I look at that is you're a thought leader, and you're sharing wisdom.
That's my approach
and thoughts on the real estate market here in the greater Morgantown area for sure. That's great.
Forgive me. I mentioned Simon Sinek earlier, and I looked over there. I see you have one of his books over on the shelf.
I do. Yes.
That's great.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Brian McCommon. Dadgummit. I knew I was going to do it. Brian McCommon, realtor with Mountain Ridge Realty, president of the Morgantown Board of Realtors. Man, it's been a great honor to have you in the studio today, just to learn about you and what you're doing. Again, I appreciate your military service, and I think what you're doing here to advance real estate and bring some of that military leadership style to your clients and your folks that you're dealing with here in North Central West Virginia. I want to just say, I think it's really cool, and I want to encourage you to keep up the great work.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely.
We'd like to thank our partners, Huntington Bank, Highmark West Virginia, Freedom Kia of Morgantown, and Storymaker, for helping to share these positive stories. If you'd like to become a sponsor of the Positively West Virginia podcast, visit positively.wv.com/sponsor.
Folks, that's a wrap on another episode of Positively West Virginia. If you or someone you know would be a great guest on the show, drop us a line on our website at positively.wv.com. And of course, we appreciate your comments, your positive reviews, 5-star. You can do a 4-star if you want to, right? I mean, that's cool. But that helps our algorithm and rankings. And also, we appreciate your comments and encouragement along the way too. And most importantly, we appreciate you sharing this content so we can get the word out there about folks just like Brian McCommon and what he's doing here in West Virginia. On behalf of our entire Positively West Virginia team, including our producer today, Mr. Justin Schofield behind the controls over there, I'm your host, Jim Matuga. Stay positive, West Virginia.